So as I'm passing this out, I'll kind of skim through the first slide really quick. My name is Jason Gaylord. I'm from northeastern Pennsylvania, and this talk is on growing your website using Orchard. So if you're here expecting something else, you probably have found the wrong place. I'll leave this up for a second. I'm sure you've seen this slide probably numerous times throughout the day so far, but you could provide some instant feedback regarding this session by using Twitter and sending a direct message to the address that you see there. And this is room 401. So. And what else do we have here? Another one of the sponsors for Codestock today is Telerik. So they've asked if we can throw this up. They've just recently released a new product that does decompiling. So the link is here if you're interested in that.
Free forever.
Free forever, yeah.
Well, that's what the collectors like too.
Yeah. I'll change in about a year. No, the guys over at Telerik, they're pretty good at that kind of stuff. So if you need the link for that. If you didn't get it, let me know afterwards. All right, before I begin, let's set today's expectations. Because I know you're all here ready to see Orchard, right? You're pumped? Everybody had their lunch? Yes? No? Anybody not eat? All right. Just want to make sure, you know. Anybody ready for a nap? Oh, okay. Yeah, there's always one.
Could say about Orchard.
Well, there you go. That's what we're looking for. If you already know everything that you'll see here below, I want you to raise both arms. Okay, so if you can take really quick, a quick jog down through here. So what you're going to see today is a total of 6 slides, 4 of which you've already seen, including this. So you can see that this is not a really slide-heavy demo, and that's not at all what I like to do. The next thing is you're going to learn what Orchard is, but don't worry, we're not going to grow apples or fruit or anything else. So if you've traveled from out of the area, you don't have to worry about taking that with you. You will learn how to customize Orchard without using any code. So we're going to walk through the actual CMS, and you're going to see some of the stuff that's already built here today, and how to add modules, how to customize layouts, how to use themes that are already out there, and so we're going to see what we can do as far as that's concerned. Then we'll also jump into extending Orchard. I recently pushed out a new version of my website that's actually using Orchard 1.1. So I'm going to walk you through the theme of my own personal site so you can see how to build a theme, as well as we're going to talk about modules and widgets. And I'm going to show you a sample module that I've built that consumes an RSS feed from the Weather Channel. And so I can display the current weather on my website. We'll talk about that a little bit more, and you can see what's involved as far as setting up a module. Sorry about that. You know, because I'm from up north. How many of you are from the Tennessee state of Tennessee? Pretty much everybody. Okay. Those of you that did not raise your hand, where are you guys from? Just so I can get an idea. Atlanta.
Lansing, Michigan.
Ooh, Michigan. Someone who traveled farther than us, John. Look at that.
Not the same distance, 10 hours.
Yeah, he just flew.
Oh, you flew down?
Oh, I don't know.
No, I drove.
Did you drive? How far was it?
I don't know, 600 miles maybe? 580?
Oh, yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, we are further. How about that? John is actually from the Philadelphia area. That's why I get to pick on John. I'm actually about another 2 hours north of there.
I have to go right back.
Yeah. So.
It's been a while.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I want to feel like I'm down from the South, and I know you guys don't do this down here in the South. But if you do see something that you'd like today, I want everybody to shout a big "Sweet." Come on.
That
doesn't work.
Running through the door.
I know. We don't have food here.
Uh-oh. It worked.
Now we're getting more people coming in.
Arkansas is about 700 miles.
Well, that's excellent. So You know what? Let me hop out of this. We'll go right over into a virtual machine that I have set up, and I'll pull up the Orchard website. How many of you are currently using Orchard or are familiar with what Orchard can do? Okay, a bunch of you. Okay, good. When you want to go download Orchard, or if you're looking for information about Orchard, easy. There's a website called orchardproject.net, and when you come out here, you'll notice on the front website that there will be a bunch of recent articles and posts that various bloggers have posted regarding Orchard. And as you'll see that these posts are coming in on a daily basis, sometimes a few posts per day. They're all related on customizing Orchard and doing different things with Orchard. And then across the top, there's a bunch of other really useful information. The download information contains the same basic stuff here. We'll talk about that in a second. Documentation. The Orchard team, which is actually made up by Outer Curve. Microsoft spun a few people off into a nonprofit organization called Outer Curve, and they've joined a few other people from out in the community, and they formed this organization to produce some open source software, and Orchard is one of these pieces of software. So those boomerangs I handed out, that has their name on it. I believe it also has, yeah, it does have their website on it as well. The Orchard team has put out many different articles explaining how to customize Orchard. In fact, probably about 2/3 of them are just basic information to help you understand how the Orchard system works. So they talk about modules and widgets, they talk about themes, they talk about content parts and content types. So that way you're familiar with the terminology that they use. They talk about shapes. They talk about recipes, something that's new in version 1.1. And you'll see some of these things today, and hopefully I give you a better idea as to what Orchard can do. The gallery is a really popular place. This is basically where you'd find all your plugins for Orchard. So on the gallery, there's both plugins as well, which are known as modules, as well as themes. So if I hop over to that, right now you can see that there's a total of 343 total packages that have been uploaded, which actually is 219 unique packages. So what many people have done is they've created separate versions of their packages and pushed them up. And I'm sure by now you've heard how Microsoft loves to measure things. They like to measure things as far as unique packages. It's the same thing that they do over on the Windows Phone side when you hear about how many applications they have. It's not necessarily how many applications they've pushed out in different language versions. It's you have this one application that counts as one. Not that you have this one application that you pushed out in 15 different languages, so it's 15 separate apps. So it's the same kind of concept here, but they're showing you all the different metrics. And you can see there's 2 packages added today. I actually have a package ready to upload, but for some reason I cannot get into my account on the Orchard Gallery, which I'm actually working with a team to see if I can figure out. It's an account issue with me because they've updated the gallery website a bunch of times. But there at the top you can see the links for modules, themes, and you can contribute any of the work that you do back over to the Orchard project and share those modules with others. So what we're concerned about here on this page is this whole download section over here. So there's a couple different ways you can download Orchard. You can use the web platform installer. How many of you have used the web platform installer? So it's pretty easy, I'm sure, as you've known, to install different applications using the web platform installer. You can also download the Orchard application as a zip file, and I'll show you that today. I've already downloaded the application. You can also download the full source for Orchard. So if you want to take a look at what they're doing under the covers and really see how they're figuring certain things out, you can go ahead and check that out. So I'm going to hop over to, just assume that I went ahead and clicked this link and came out with this zip file that we see here, Orchard Web 1.1.30. This is the latest version of Orchard. If you visit over on the CodePlex site, they do multiple check-ins daily, so you can always download the latest version of the code. But we're going to use this. And when I open this up, you'll see that there's a bunch of different files in here that are part of this zip file, but I'm really only concerned about the folder that's called Orchard. So I'm going to copy this over, and I'm going to find my just my local inetpub www root directory, and I'm going to paste this in here. It'll take a second. And obviously, if we're doing the web installer, it sets a lot of the stuff up for us already. The one thing to note is whenever you're doing any development on Orchard, it does require write access to the modules and the themes folder. This is because as you download those files, they need to be able to, they're NuGet packages, so they need to be able to be extracted and copied to a certain directory. So just to kind of prevent any type of issues as we're poking around here today, what I'm going to do is go in, and I'm just using a default IIS users account, and I'm going to go ahead and give that person full control. Obviously, if I was pushing this up to a production server, I'd want to make sure that I revoke those permissions just so I'm not causing any issues after I do push the site up. The next thing we're going to do is I'll hop into IIS.
So if you did that on our production site, you would grant the IIS user rewrite themes and modules.
The themes and modules. And when you do actually go to flip it live, just again, one of those best practices is I would revoke those permissions then. You don't need it after all of your modules and your themes are extracted. It's only meant for that. There is also a media folder that you will need write access to if you're posting blog posts using pictures and whatnot. I'll show you that in a second. So what we're going to do here is I'll browse into, let me delete this. Actually, no, I'll leave it because that still does exist. All I did was, if I did not have this application here, actually let me remove it just so I could show. You can see that the folder is already there in inetpub. I'll just convert this to an application. Make sure that it's ASP.NET version 4. The reason being is Orchard is written using MVC3 and using the Razor syntax. So how many of you in here are familiar with MVC3 in ASP.NET? Oh, perfect, everybody. That's what we like to see. And so we do need to set that to version 4, and there we go. So you're going to notice I'm not going to hop into Visual Studio at all. I'm just going to browse localhost and hit Orchard, and it will take a second for the Orchard engine to spin up. So I think it will. Oh, there it goes. So I'm just going to call this today, it's going to bring me up to a Get Started pages. I'm going to call this Demo Site. I'm going to leave admin as the default username. My password has to be at least 8 characters long. So I'm going to use a very secure password, so please no one write this down. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Thought I heard a pencil somewhere. Oh, perfect. Our next option is we have the capability. We can choose our data store. We could either use SQL Server Compact Edition, or we can connect to an existing SQL Server database. You would notice if I go back to this folder that there is a SQL script that I could run against my production SQL Server. So if I already have a SQL Server and I want to expand out and use SQL Server 2008, or if I'm pushing this out to some other database engine, I could go ahead and, obviously, if it's a different database engine, I would have to modify a few more things. But here's a SQL script that will set up all the necessary tables for us in our database. So I'm just going to use the default SQL Server Compact Edition. This next thing called recipes, we're going to talk about this more towards the end. I'll show you how to access the recipes folder, and as we go through, you'll see how recipes could become quite useful. For now, there's 3 built-in recipes into Orchard. There's the default, which sets up a default template for for your website. It includes things such as pages, blog, adds a bunch of modules to the site. Blog is just a basic blog, and core is basically installing it with certain functionality, but it doesn't include anything. So you have to build everything up from scratch. So we're going to leave default for now, and we'll choose Finish Setup. And take a second here. And if I scroll up, you'll see they have a little cheesy cooking orchard recipe Ajax icon there. And all right, I already have a site up. Of course, it really doesn't mean a whole lot to anybody, but I do have a website up. Pretty quick and simple. So you'll see that because I already put in the user credentials at the bottom, I already have access, so I can hop over into my dashboard. I can sign out and go ahead and change my password. So I'm going to jump over into the dashboard. And this is quite amazing because it's been enhanced multiple times between version 1 and version 1.1. If any of you touched or dabbled at all with Orchard 1.0, you'll notice that the menu was very difficult to navigate through. If you tried to drag and drop any widgets on any pages, you would notice that just seemed a little clunky, really wasn't user-friendly. So they've really cleaned it up quite a bit. I've been told by the team that that's also one of their goals for version 1.2, which they're going to be pushing out sometime later this summer. Version 1.2, there's going to be some even better enhancements within Orchard regarding the user interface. But over on the left-hand side, you can see the list of different options that we have here. So one of the first things we're going to do is we'll hop down here to settings. I'll click over here on the General tab. This is the way that we could set up most of our general settings regarding Orchard. You can see here this is where we can go back and change our site name. We could add more cultures for our site, so that way we could set up globalization. We can add in simple things like page title separators, set the default number of items per page, etc. The base URL, that's something that we want to go ahead and put in when we push out our website. Some modules will actually look for that base URL so they can use it within their module, and they'll use that so that way they can append a certain path afterwards, especially if they're using routing to control certain things. So you're going to see there's modules out there for say sitemap. So you can install that module, control the sitemap, and it's going to look for the base URL to use so that way it can find the proper sitemap and wire it up in the route. Gallery by default, this ties you directly into the Orchard gallery. Later on down the road, if you want to create your own gallery internally, if you're a larger enterprise or if you're a design shop, you want to create a bunch of modules that you push out to clients, you can go ahead and create your own NuGet gallery and just add that feed that you would find from the NuGet gallery in here, and whenever you click on modules, you'll be able to search both. We'll skip over comments for now. Media, this is the certain types of media that are allowed. We'll click up on the media tab in a second. And users, you can add multiple users. Media, I had mentioned that there is a folder in Orchard. Scoot over to it. You'll find here. This media folder has, this is where you would contain, or this would contain all the images that you want to upload using that media folder. So if I came back to here and I chose to add a folder, for instance, and put in here homepage, for instance, and save this, you'll notice it will go ahead and add the folders and the files in there. Okay, let's jump over to themes. By default, because I chose the default instance, there's a default theme, which happens to be called the theme machine. It's nothing really exciting, so what we'll do is we'll jump over to the gallery and we'll be able to go ahead and switch through a bunch of different themes. You'll see here all sorts of different themes as you scroll down through. we'll scroll back up and we'll choose the ever so famous Contoso. I'm still trying to find that company. Every time I go out to Washington, I keep trying to search and find it, but for some reason I just can't find it. And hopefully this doesn't give me a fit. I'm actually connected to my Verizon hotspot here, so I know it's not extremely fast. Actually, if I need to, I think I have it somewhere else. Nope. Maybe I do. Oh, yeah, I do. Oh, no, there it goes. Okay, so at this point it's already gone ahead and installed the theme. So if I click back on themes, you'll see here's my current theme, and here's my new theme that I've downloaded, Contoso. So I'll go ahead and set this as my current theme. And there we go. Click back over on my site. You'll notice that the main page has changed a little bit, added a little, changed the style a little bit, changed the theme up just a tad. The same kind of concept applies for modules. If I click over to modules, you'll see that I have different areas. I have a content area that has the built-in content items that you'll see over here, blogs, my content types, list, and so on and so forth. So I could modify that information, and you can see here I could go ahead and disable any of those modules. So these are all the built-in modules that come with Orchard that we can go ahead and enable or disable. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to hop over to Gallery, and in just a little bit I'm going to show you how to create our own custom module and our own custom theme. So for now I'll click on this, and I think I clicked on it. Maybe I didn't. Let that go ahead and install. Actually, I'm going to if it's going to let me cancel my download, I will. Okay, maybe it did. So again, this is another feature that they have with the gallery. Let's assume that I already downloaded this particular module. You can see over there that it is a NuGet package. I can go under Installed, choose Install Module for my computer, browse to the file, choose it, and choose Install, and go ahead and enable it. And while I'm out here, copy that one out. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to install one more module. This is a custom module that we'll walk through, which is the weather module that we add, that I referred to. So go ahead and add that. And this weather module, at the end I'll show you a quick slide that shows all my contact information. So if you pay attention to both my blog or my Twitter account, as soon as my account is resolved up on the Orchard Gallery, I will post this, as well as post all the source code out on CodePlex. So if you want to download it and check out the module, you'll be able to. So click back over to modules now, and you'll see that I have code generation here, and down at the bottom I have widgets, and I have my weather.com widget down there. So let's jump over to blog, and we'll create a test blog. I'll say this is called my blog, and we'll leave that blank. We'll say let's show this on the main menu as blog, and go ahead and save it. Click back over to our site, and so now you see that I have this blog menu item over here. So I'll go back over to my dashboard, and I can go ahead and add a new post. I could do it either using the web interface, or if I would like, I can use, like, for instance, Windows Live Writer, Microsoft Word, or any other blog editing tool out there, and connect to this and make a post. So I'm going to say that this is my first post. Welcome to my exciting talk on Orchard. Things are going great. So far. But the guy in the back is sleeping. Wake up. And I'll go ahead and publish that. Again, back over to my site. I've got my blog, and there's my first post. Okay. So let's say I want to modify this section, and I want to start grabbing my blog posts and showing them on my front page. So you can see right now this is a very basic HTML widget that just says welcome to Orchard, has some default text. I also have these areas down here at the bottom that really don't contain much. So first things first, let's go ahead and edit this. And you'll see as soon as I edit, it takes me right to my page. It says welcome to Orchard. So I'm going to delete all this, and I'm going to say this is where I'd enter filler text, and I'll just save this for now. You could see that it changed that particular area. So now what I want to do is I want to add a widget to my screen, something so that way I could go ahead and modify, and I could see that I have my latest blog post right there on my home page in a summary. Because I've switched over to the Contoso theme, and I probably should switch this back really quick just to show you the widget screen for a second. Click back over on widgets. You'll notice, I don't know if it, oh yeah, it does show up pretty good on the projector. If you look over here on the right hand side, you'll see this little diagram. This is a simple page, and you'll see there's a bunch of different areas that are marked as header, navigation, etc. Each one of these areas are defined as a content area. We can create our own content areas, and you're going to see if I scroll back up to the top, there's a way where we can go ahead and add those particular areas, so we can add additional content. These are the default ones that are installed. So you can see here, if I was building a CSS for a theme, that these are the areas that I would be able to control if the user on the other end is leaving the default layers. So you can see here, this is where I could go ahead and add a layer, and I can add additional areas within that layer. So what I'm really concerned about is the content. So if I go over to my home page and choose the content area, I'm going to add the recent blog post widget. I'm going to say I want to add this to content on just the home page. So this layer is just for the home page only. And I'm going to say here are my recent posts. As my title, choose my blog. I want to show up to 3 items and choose save. If I want to, if I chose edit layer, you could see that there's layer rules that are set up. So anytime I'm at the root of this web application, it's going to apply this rule for the home page layer. So any content I put in that home page layer will be used as the default. Back. Okay, so it's added that there. Now what I'm going to do is I want to remove one of those HTML items that were that were contained down here. And I want to add this new weather item that I've created already. So I'm going to choose Add, choose the weather part. I'm going to put in here recent weather. And I'll copy this URL because I know that has not changed. Anybody live down here? Provide a zip code? Any zip code. Someone. 30294. Okay, perfect. I'm going to grab partner ID and a license key here in a second. You know what? Let me log into my website really quick so I can grab that information. I actually thought I had it written down, but apparently I didn't. Copy this information over. For this particular widget, this is information you can grab right from the Weather Channel registration page for this particular widget. So I'll go ahead and save this. And now if we click back over on our main page, you'll see here that here's the list of, oh, I forgot to change it. Here's the list of recent posts, and it doesn't look like my weather is working right now. Quite possible I missed one in the settings. But I'm going to change my theme back over to Contoso just so it looks a little bit better. But anyway, the weather widget, I could show you that on my site. I've actually used a custom template, but if I go ahead and log out, so the custom template just displays some very basic information, but you can override it. So over here on the right hand side is my my custom weather widget. And you can see it kind of gives that little beam feel, so that way when you mouse over and hover over, back at in my hometown it's 67 right now, and it looks like partly or mostly sunny. They list it as fair. So, waiting for this to switch over. Looks like my, for whatever reason, my hard drive on this VM is running a little sluggish. Oh, there it goes. It did populate the weather. So you can see down here, as of 5:05 p.m. UTC, it was 91 degrees here. Feels like 96. So. Those kind of sound pretty accurate. It's partly cloudy right now, so you can see that basic information there. So let's start talking a little bit about, because we have about 35 minutes left, let's talk a little bit about how to create our own themes and modules and whatnot. If I open up my command prompt and browse to the folder for our Orchard installation, and go into the bin directory, there is an executable called orchard.exe. So I'll go ahead and run this. What this actually does is it basically runs a command application that allows us to send certain commands over to Orchard. And take me sometimes the team's looking at this. Sometimes takes a second for it to initialize. Oh, it's still failing. I don't think I have to run it as administrator, but Oh, I was already running it as administrator. Let's try it again. It's giving me an error message. Yeah, it's hyper namespace framework. It's not. Yeah, it might be possible that I might have to do that. No. Okay, so what I will do then is I have a backup plan. Keep doing the same thing. Wait for this to be done copying. Let's see if it works if I'm using, could just be maybe an issue when I downloaded, I'm hoping. Maybe it was missing something. Maybe. Possibly. Nope. I'm not going to waste too much time trying to figure out why that's not working right now.
Working on mine.
I'll check it out more towards the end and I'll see if I can get it to work. But anyway, that is a console application that will allow you to jump into the command line and you can pass commands over to Orchard. So one of the things that you would do is if you wanted to create your own custom module, and I'll just use Notepad. There's a since we've downloaded and installed the code generation module, that gives us some additional commands that we can create. So we can use something like CodeGen theme and type in, for instance, code stock, and then there's a couple switches we can add. One of them being create project :true, and what that allows us to do is it allows just that. Allows us to create a project file for this particular theme. And we can also say include in solution true. So if we're opening up the Orchard project, if we're opening up the entire solution, what it will do is it will take our theme and add that right to our Orchard solution. So we'll add that our custom code stock theme directly to our Orchard project or Orchard solution.
How's it find when you run that, you can be running in the folder where the solution is, or does it have a...
Yeah, when you browse to, it's going to bug me that this isn't working, but when you come out here to this particular folder, and if we were to run Orchard, and of course I'm going to try it again just because it's one of those things where it's bugging you. I don't know why maybe it's a permissions thing or something. I'll have to check that here in a second. Maybe I should have set something else up as. No, on my luck, it's not the IAS user. It's something else that needs full permissions. But anyway, when you browse to that folder, it knows that it's in that instance of Orchard. So within that CodeGen module, it knows that, hey, I'm within this Orchard application, and it browses up, finds the necessary projects and modifies the necessary project files to include that in your solution. So let me try it one more time. And I'm going to be very secure here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find, I'm actually going to jump through and find the everyone user. It'll be fine. Works on my machine. And go ahead and set those permissions. No, it's still not. Yeah. For whatever reason, it seems like it's an issue. This VM is running very slow. So there may be something going on with the VM. It might need a reboot, but I don't want to. Well, that's actually the path for the source code for the code generation module. So if you took a look at the full stack, you'd see that it's actually pointing to a particular file within that. So anyway, this is how you create a theme. I'm going to jump into a theme for a second, but if we wanted to, we could create a module pretty much the same way. We would type in CodeGen module, and for instance, I can type in weather, and we'd go ahead and create a module. So in the I'll go ahead and open up the theme. So in the interest of time, I'm going to kind of fly through this area a little bit quickly. But this is the default theme that I use on my website that I've gone ahead and created. There's some key parts to the theme. Themes and modules are very similar in that they have pretty much the same structure. You're going to see when I hop over and open up the module that it's very similar. They all pretty much have the same kind of structure. The only difference for a theme is what you actually put in it, and when you package it up, marking it, or I'm sorry, when you upload it, uploading it and saying that, hey, I'm a theme. If I open up theme.txt, you're going to see for module there's a file called module.txt. This provides some metadata regarding my particular theme or module. So here you could see that I put my name, author, etc., version, and provided some tag information. If I wanted to, I can take a quick snapshot of my theme and include it, so that way when I'm browsing through the UI, I can see a quick snapshot of, hey, this is what the theme looks like. Probably the most important file in any of the add-ons for Orchard, either themes or modules, is the placement.info file. Can't stress that enough. That is probably the most important file. Reason being is, and I've been bitten by this before, when you run the CodeGen command in the Orchard command prompt, it does not automatically create the placement.info file. So what will happen is, if you go and drag and drop your module on a page and you're not saying I'm expecting it to be here or I'm expecting it to be there, it won't appear and you won't be able to figure out why. And sometimes it's a painful process. I've actually spent a few hours the one day recompiling. I would create a brand new project, dump all my files in, recompile. I'm like, why isn't it working? And then finally realized that it was because of the placement.info file. There's a whole tutorial out on the Orchard website that talks about the different parts of this placement.info XML file. But you could see here without going into it too deep, you could see that we're trying to first of all grab any of the content types that are marked as pages, and we're going to display we allow both a summary and a detailed display. And in either case, I don't want to show this particular part, which is called common metadata. For blog posts, I want to customize that a little bit more, and you could see that I have a part called like, which happens to be the Facebook like button for every single blog post. So this allows me to specify the exact placement of where I want that part to render within this particular thing. So you could really customize the way you want your theme to look and feel without using a whole lot of CSS, especially if you know what widgets and parts that you would want to include. Views, these are basic Razor views. So again, if I open up layout.cshtml, one of the things that I'm doing here is I will know on my model which content regions that I have within my theme. So in this particular case, I'm checking to see if I have any items that are contained in the aside second region. I want to set this variable display aside second as true. So that way, down below, I can go ahead and add the region that has my little weather stamp and some advertisements right on my home page of my site. So let's jump over now to the weather module, because that's more exciting. Okay. Much like the theme, again, we have a placement.info file. This is pretty basic. It just allows us to specify where we want our edit part, where we want our main widget to appear. Again, a module.text file. This allows us to specify which category within the UI where we want to put it. In this case, I chose the widget category, and I could also define any type of dependencies. So if my module depends on something else that's built in Orchard or another module maybe I've released. So think about it from from a distribution perspective. Maybe I create a core module that I want to include certain bits of information in many other modules that I create. I can go ahead and add the dependency for that other module in here. It will not install without first going ahead and downloading those other items. So here's the information regarding the module.txt file. Okay, so we'll hop over here to my models folder, and I have two different files in here. First, one of the items that I created was a content part record, and here I'm specifying certain properties that I want to capture when I first drag and drop that module on one of my regions in one of my pages. So I want to specify, in this case, the web service URL, the search string, which is the zip code for my lookup, my partner ID, my license key, and track the number of minutes that I want to cache. So I'm also going to create a public class that implements that particular content part record as a content part. And again, you could see the properties here where I'm passing those over. And I have certain properties here that I've defined as required and placed in certain default values that will populate over. So in my case, these are all required. In this particular area, this is where I can put in and specify certain data annotations, so I can say that the field has to be within a certain size, etc. I have some other files in here that I've actually used one of the add-ons for, I believe it's the REST toolkit, allows you to point to an XML file that you can find out on the internet, and it will build a strongly typed class for you, so you don't have to worry about wiring up your individual objects up to that. So I've created that, and I've created a few other classes that help build out my my class object for the information that I want to store. One of the next things that you'll want to do is create something called data migration. Actually, you know what? Let me bump up the font size here. I didn't realize it's a little too high. Is that a little better? Okay. So one of the next things I want to do is create a data migration. And this could be done a couple different ways. One of the ways it could be done is, again, using the CodeGen. I can type in CodeGen data migration and pass in my model name, weather. And what it will do is it'll take a look at my model and will automatically add in the columns, as you can see here, to define my table. So this is where we're actually going ahead and defining our repository, and we're building our schema for our data table. So you can see here that what it's going to do is create a table called weather part record, and those are going to be the properties or the columns within that table.
Setmigrations.cs is generated from Orchard.exe, and you would type this out.
You could type this out. Yeah, any of these things that you see here that we're using CodeGen, you could go ahead and type these out and add these files. But you don't have to. You could use the CodeGen module to do a lot of that legwork for you. It doesn't include everything. So for instance, one of the lines that I've added is here on line number 22, where I'm basically saying, okay, here's this module that I defined. I need to make it a widget, so that way it could be included in one of my pages. Because a module, by definition, doesn't have any user interface, so this allows me to actually attach that to other items. So in this case, that's what I'm doing in line number 22. And then I'm defining that even further, so that way I'm adding it to this to the widget table and saying, hey, my weather part, this is actually a widget. And I'm returning a version. If I wanted to add additional columns later on down the road, I can go ahead and add in another method here. The next method I would add would say something like public upgrade from, and then the version I'm returning here. Actually, I want to say public int. And I could go ahead and continue with my method definition there to go ahead and add those columns. So again, the migrations file allows you to migrate your data from different versions of your widget. Yeah, sure.
Let's say you got create, you got update from 1 and update from 2, and somebody decides to realize project and return. So, on update from 1, so it's update from 2. And obviously, will it stop, or will it go?
If they're returning, if for whatever reason they've added further on to return 7,
Right.
your next method you'd want to name update from 7.
Right.
Yep.
But
Yeah,
if they get update from 2 and update from 1, return 7, will update from 2 run? That'll just get skipped.
That's a good question. I really don't know without looking into it further.
Okay.
I want to say that it will run, but wait a second. You're returning 7 in 1,
Yeah.
so instead of saying return 1, no, it would skip it because if it thinks that the default value of the first data of this default method called create
Right.
is returning 7, so it assumes that you're on version 7 of that data schema.
Say you want to put like 8 somewhere, or you want to do update from 7.
Right.
I mean, you guys think for arbitrary?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Just curious.
Yeah, and the same thing over in the placement.info. These values that you'll see here, they could be anything. They could be 3.1, they could be 3.1.1.1. So you can really get to I guess, an infinite placement regarding your parts or within your theme regarding certain parts within your theme.
I think that's one of the coolest features of extension one.
Yeah, that allows you to place things wherever. Yep. So we have a handler. Again, it just defines that, hey, we have a single repository. Our single repository is going to be the weather part record, and we want to go ahead and add that to our storage. So again, nothing crazy there. The next thing up is our weather driver, and in this particular instance, I'm using a service that I want to handle all of my data interaction. The reason why I'm using a service, and I could have brought this over into the driver, is the fact that I'm going to be using some caching. So you can see if I hop over to the service really quick, I've implemented a couple different interfaces that are contained in Orchard, one that's called the iCache Manager and one that's called the iClock. And I have a default method on this weather channel service called get current conditions, which expects my part. And you can see I generate a cache key, and I'm passing in the search string from my part, so that way if I have multiple parts on my page, let's say I'm building a world site and I have Tokyo, I have New York, I have Los Angeles, a few other cities or locations around the world, I can go ahead and add multiple parts to show all of the weather across the world, and it's going to cache each one individually. So if one particular feed goes down, it's not going to affect everything. I'm only caching just that particular instance. And again, you could see here that I'm going to go ahead and cache it, pass in the minutes to cache from my part settings, and go ahead and retrieve the current conditions. So if it's not cached, it's going to go out. It's going to make a call to our weather URL. It's going to grab all of our properties and pass all of those into our model, which you could see there, and then return this weather object that I've created up in my models. So I'll switch back over to my driver. So I have two main areas. Actually, I have three main areas of my driver. Think of driver as being your controller in MVC. So you can see here that I have a display driver result, an editor driver result, actually two editor driver results. One is expecting a get, and the other one is expecting a post, HTTP command. So when I'm doing a display, what it's going to do is it wants to return a content shape. Orchard has this whole concept of shapes. Basically, all of your shapes are views within the user interface. So I'm going to return a content shape called parts_weather widget. In the default model for storing views in Orchard, you could see that I have parts, and then the underscore signifies that there's an actual file after that. So you can see I'm in the parts folder, and I want to find this weatherwidget.cshtml. If I open it up, you could see again it's a very basic Razor page. My editor is a little bit different in that by appending _edit, it's going to know that I'm using this editor templates folder, and again I have a weather widget Razor file contained within here. So you can see here that I have my file there, which allowed me to add in all those properties that we showed earlier. When I'm posting, I'm going to take my part and pass it over into the iUpdate model and allow those settings to store back to my repository. So again, let's go back over to the dashboard. Now obviously, once I build this, it would be available out there for me in widgets. I don't have to go ahead and browse to it. Out in modules. It will automatically appear out here. And unfortunately, because CodeGen isn't working, I can't create an empty module to show you that. So you're just going to have to trust me there. I know it's sometimes kind of hard to trust those guys up north, but you'll have to trust me there. That it will create a module out here that we can go ahead and enable right away. So one of the other things that we can do, and you probably have heard me talk about it a little bit, is update our content. Let's say for some really crazy reason, every time I post a blog, let's assume that this blog and this whole website is all tied to travel. So I'm going around the world, I'm traveling, and every time I make a post, I'm adding some information regarding that particular area. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and modify my content types. And you can see here that here are a bunch of different content types that are built in. We could go ahead and create a new type, but I'm going to go ahead and choose to edit post. And you can see here there's different items that are automatically added. So I can really customize the way even my blog posts appear. If I don't want to include tags, I can go ahead and remove it. Same thing about comments. So I can go ahead and choose add parts to blog post. I can go ahead and choose weather and hit save. And now you can see that I have weather down here on my blog post. So if I want, I can go back to manage blog and go ahead and choose it. Oh, you know what? Oh no, I did hit save. Oh, see, I did a good job. What I would most likely do in this particular instance is create a brand new editor display that restricts some of the fields that I have here, so that way it's only showing me the search string on this particular page, And with that being said, I would put in a string saying, hey, I'm in New York City, so put in New York. And then when I would hit my blog post, it would actually show my weather widget on the bottom of my blog post showing the weather for New York. So some pretty cool stuff. And of course, if that were the case, I can go ahead and set it up so that way it only pulls the weather once and stores it and shows that information in the particular format that I want to see. So again, I'll jump back over to my website and I'll just show a few quick things so that way you can see. I'm going to be posting a little bit about my website, some of the modules and whatnot that I've used. And one of the Microsoft Developer Evangelists for the Mid-Atlantic region, Andrew Duffy, is actually taking the code that I use to generate the tags and change the layout for the modules, and he's rolling that into his own blog post that he's going to be pushing out. So again, you could visit my website, or I'm going to post up my information here in a second regarding contacting me. But some of the modules that I've used on here, as I stated, I've used the weather widget. I've used the Discuss module. So if you're familiar with Discuss, that allows you to add comments, and all those comments are stored separately from your actual website. And those comments could be reposted again to Twitter or Facebook or any of the other social media sites. So I'm using that module and place that in line. I'm also using the Facebook like, so you can see here that I can like this post or comment on it a little further. Down at the bottom, I have a recent tweet area. This is using a Twitter module that again I've customized a little bit so that way it fit and looked a little better within the page. I am using Pages as well as the blog, and I'll probably be adding some additional items here shortly. The advertisements over here on the right, I'm going to be creating, I'm actually just about ready to publish another module so that way you can place those advertisements on your Orchard instance and choose a particular size that you would want, put in your credentials from the Lake Quincy Media ad website, and put in your credentials and choose your size, and it will automatically add that code to your spot in Orchard.
Will that work with Hub Center too?
I'm sorry?
Will that work with Microsoft Hub Center?
Accounts through Microsoft Ads?
No, this would just be for Lake Quincy Media, but I could probably look to modify it so that way it would. Yeah, that's a good suggestion, John. I'll take a look into that. So, the last thing that I promised I'd show you here at the end is recipes. So again, we're not going to go into great detail about this, but if I open up my Orchard instance and go into modules, there's a module in here called orchard.recipes. So if I open that up and open up, oh, I'm not in the right spot. I want to go into themes. Yeah, I thought I was in the right spot. Maybe I'm not. No, I was. Oh, that's right. It's in orchard.setup. I'm sorry. I have a folder. I apologize. The orchard.recipes is the actual module. Orchard.setup. If I go into, you'll see there's a folder called recipes. And if I go into there, you'll see these are XML files. I'll open up the default.xml here in Visual Studio. And actually, no, I won't. I'm going to open it. My theme has Visual Studio theme's kind of screwed up some of the XML files I see. So let's open it up just in IE. So you can see that I have a name for my theme. The line after the tag is not included. It's not part of the actual file. But anyway, you can see I have a description. There's certain features that we're going to enable here within this recipe. Certain types are going to be automatically enabled for indexing. There's going to be certain parts that are included within those types. If I have any other settings for any of my parts, I can pre-populate the settings. I can add in migration features, and I can automatically add in some default migrations. And then there's a bunch of commands here. So where you see layer create, default, layer role, true, etc. You'll see one in here for the home page here. You can see there's my layer rule. So when I chose that, what it's doing is any of those commands that are in there, and one of the things I could do is I could force and say that I need to include the code generation. We can by default create modules and everything on the fly using this recipe. So right up front, we can modify the setup install, so we're asking for certain bits up front. They can put in certain parameters for our modules, and when they hit save to generate their website, it's already set up, configured the way we want it, with the theme that we want chosen, and with the modules we want pre-populated, with the settings pre-populated. So it's pretty easy for us to take this whole concept of recipes, generate a template, and start pushing it out to everybody. So we'll hop over to
Is there a way to create recipes for the site you're set up? You have to do it.
as of right now, you have to do it manually. I can't comment on any specifics, but I believe both the team as well as a few developers outside are working on different ways that you could do a lot of those customizations, including creating your own themes, creating recipes, creating modules, using more of a user interface-based system rather than doing a lot of that stuff through code, because a lot of developers out there aren't always using CMS solutions. They're rolling things themselves. So it's going to allow people who aren't too technical to get up and running a little faster. So I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see some sort of user interface or some application that's kind of separate from it being released sometime later on this year. Can't comment for sure, but I've heard some grumblings of people saying that they're interested. The other thing I want to mention while we're on that topic is there's a bunch of people that I know as of right now are currently in talks with some publishers because they have some content they're ready to release into some books. So I've heard about 4 to 6 titles being thrown out there for books that may be released sometime this year. None from the team itself, which I was kind of surprised at. The team had stated that they're not right now working on any books about Orchard. They're more focused on the versions and getting the next few versions out. But it's a very active project. It's something I'm sure you've heard they talked about at Mix, so it's going to be something that's going to continue on. Yeah.
I just upgraded from 1 to 1.1, and it's really not cool. And I read something that you guys have to recreate the design. I read something that the next releases are going to support.
Yeah. 1.0 to 1.1, there's been a few blog posts. There were a few things you would have to do to get it to work, and many people still had issues. I actually had a site from back when it was called Orchard 0.5, and had a site. I was working with Brad Bertrand and the rest of the team on a few different things, which is part of the reason why my Orchard Gallery user account is all mucked up, is because I posted a module and just a test module, and I wanted to get back into that account because it's tied back to my email address, and realized, hey, I can't get into it. So they're working on it. But yeah, they will have a little bit easier upgrade path in the future. So before I take any more questions, I want to just do a little self-glorification here. Here's my web address, my Twitter account, Facebook, LinkedIn, email, my user group alias. I run a user group in northeastern Pennsylvania. I'm actually not too far from the Dunder Mifflin paper plant, so if any of you want to come visit, we've got the paper plant up there. You could say hi to Michael Scott. He still drives around the area, even though he's left. But in all seriousness, it's definitely a little different area. I've put together an electronic newspaper, so to speak, of articles that get posted on a daily basis. So you could subscribe to that using the link there, tinyurl.com/orchardcms, and I also have a blog post about it. Are there any other questions that anybody has? If you came in late, I don't know if any of you did, I have a bunch of boomerangs up here you can grab, and I have some Orchard stickers, so you can go show people how cool Orchard is and show it off to everybody. Are there any questions?
There's a built on top of that hibernate, so I think it's why is there only support for two single servers, not everything that Hibernate supports? Is there plans to do that too, not the
Again, that's not something I could comment on in particular, but I wouldn't be surprised if later on they start adding additional database types. But of course, since most of the people on the team are from Microsoft, it's they've pushed SQL first, so maybe that's a feature that they're looking to add. I know there's a few things out there in CodePlex for suggestions for future versions to get some other database support out there. But you have to keep in mind too, if you're pushing it off to a Windows host, that both the Compact Edition and SQL Express are free. And the Express version is pretty much the same as SQL Server. It's just minus a few bells and whistles, and it can only run on certain processors and up to a certain amount of RAM. But it really isn't that bad. It really doesn't slow the connection down that much. So, are there any other questions? Yeah. Okay, so the question is in regards to allowing multiple sites to run within Orchard. As of right now, you can run multiple blogs, but you can only run one site within that particular Orchard instance. You'd have to create a separate Orchard instance for each site. Again, that's something that they've talked about. That's one of the features they've talked about to see what they can do. So.
Also, the security model, is it extensible?
Yes. Yeah, everything within Orchard is extensible. So you can go ahead and create your own permissions.
They have a provider model.
They do have a provider model for the security.
Well, I got to build security system that works within this, but also contains a lot of extra data for other people. And so I should be able to do that without having to go in and hack anything.
I would honestly have to take a look at what you're looking to do to tell you how involved you have
Well,
to be.
what it amounts to is some attributes that have to be tied to the user that are passed in the widgets.
Oh, okay. Okay. So almost like a personalization, or not quite.
Well, I'm going to have widgets that are custom applications that are going to have some permissions that are specific to that.
Oh, based on the user and the role?
Yes.
The role model and the user model is all extensible, so you could customize the roles that are contained for each of the users. So you can define that these particular people belong to, if you think about it from a corporate environment, you could say these users are part of this department, these users are part of this department. This department has access to these widgets, these pages, these ones don't. So that is all built within the system. You don't have to worry about rolling your own role and user provider. Now, if you're looking to add some additional settings that will allow the user to go in and say maybe choose their default location or set up certain preferences in regards to how they want to be communicated or whatever, you could go ahead and extend the security provider model for that and include those. And that's as simple as creating a module and implementing that module. Again, you don't need to convert that module and make it an attachable widget. That module could do some other things behind the scenes.
Another thing I'll need to do is I want to have a registration that will manage all of the users internally. Is that something that can be implemented?
Yeah, so actually let me hop back over to here and I could show you the user area. Again, you can see the users and the roles. So I can go ahead and choose add a new user right from here and add those users. And if you can see, if I click over on roles, again, I can add a role, but here are the default roles that are contained within Orchard. And going back to the whole layers, so if I click back over to widgets and go ahead and choose add a new layer, I can always add in a layer rule here that specifies saying that these particular roles can access those. Of course, I could do that on the module as well. I know I'm running kind of late, so I better shut down here. But if you have any other questions, you can see me outside. I'll be around for a little bit yet. Thank you.